welcome back to our Essentials list. Lewis is here to help me out as we did with our last video for this, which was for cooperative games. And we are really excited to share with you our favorite essential flip and write games.
What's a flip and write game?
Well, flip and write is a subgenre of roll and write games. And roll and write games require you to roll dice and then write on a piece of paper or a dry erase board, and everyone's essentially using the same information to complete their own player board.
Right.
So flip and write just is cards as opposed to dice. And the great thing I think about the mechanic of using cards as your information versus dice is the deck is set. Mm-hmm. And so there's a way to kind of regulate the information. Now, how it, comes out or how it's shuffled is different every time you play, but it's not like you're rolling a 1 every time.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that really helps with the genre of flip and writes to make them, easier to design, which means that the experience seems to be more balanced when you play as a gamer. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also allows you to kind of plan ahead or bet. I haven't seen these cards yet, so there's a good chance they may be coming up soon. Whereas with dice, you say, well, we haven't had a 6 rolled in a while, but that doesn't mean a 6 is coming.
We may never see a 6.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, brief overview, we've got these flip and writes. I have 2 of my essential flip and writes that I think you should absolutely have and play. Lewis is going to share his favorite essential flip and writes, 2 of those, and then together we have 1 overlap that we think is just awesome. Yeah. So that means we've got 5 games that we are ready to share with you, and I have one that's a little bit easier than the other, and so does Lewis. So we'll get those to you in easier order to more complex or challenging order. So I'm going to start, and my very first flip and write suggestion is Trails of Tucana.
Hooray!
Hooray! I do. I like this game a lot. I liked it so much I did a Barb video, and that's how you play. I usually pick those games that I think are a little bit easier to play, but also I just really like. Yeah. That's kind of a telltale sign that this is a thumbs up from Kim, even though they're all my characters. So in Trails of Tucana, you have a deck of cards that are depicting locations, and these locations will allow you to draw a line between one location to the next. And so when you flip over 2 cards, you have to draw a line between, let's say, mountain and desert. And you can put your line anywhere on your map. There are 2 maps in this. It's on a piece of paper, really pretty, nice iconography. I really, really like it. And so you can play on the easy map, the hard map, just means you take a little bit longer to play the game. Mm-hmm. And then you get points for connecting to sites. You get points for connecting trails and routes, and everybody starts just a little bit different. So there's this asymmetric beginning with where your actual trails are on your map. It's so replayable, it's so fun, and it's super easy to teach and play.
Yeah.
Do you like Trails of Tucana?
I really like Trails of Tucana, and I like that at first you can kind of start with the smaller map and get to know the game, and then once you have it, the larger map is a little more interesting and uses your thoughts a little bit more. You have to think a little bit more.
You do. You have to plan ahead. Yeah, because you go 3 rounds in the La Isla Grande as opposed to 2 in the small island. And so you really do have to say, okay, well, I'm doing long-term goals here as opposed to the game ending sooner in the smaller map.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it gives you those options.
I like the game. It's nice and compact. I think almost all the games we're mentioning are nice-sized games, meaning they can fit in little nooks and crannies, which I think is fantastic. Yeah.
Well, my first roll and write, which is a simple one, is also very small. The box is very slender and easy to fit in. It's called Silver and Gold.
Even smaller.
Yes. In this game, you're going to have, you're going to take cards that have shapes on them, and you're going to be flipping over smaller shapes that you then fill in on the cards as you see fit. And when you complete a card, you get, some things for that, victory points being the big thing. And on the cards, sometimes you'll have little bonus ways to score points. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So easy to learn. You can really play a game in maybe 20 minutes with a large group, even though it's simple, even though the concepts in Silver and Gold are simple and straightforward, I think there's enough there that when you are playing, you're having a great time.
Yeah.
Good game for a starter or a finisher for the night, I would argue as well.
And every time we've introduced this game to friends, they say their eyes light up at the end whenever we kind of ask, well, what'd you think, or how did it go, or what's your thoughts about it? And they go, where can I get this game?
Yeah.
Like they really do. They get so excited. So it's a great share game to just show people, here's what you can do with a deck of cards and dry erase markers. You actually write on the cards.
Yeah,
they're
pretty
erasable.
cool.
Yeah, so it's just a really nice, compact game. It has the same feature that Trails of Tucana has, where there's one card left over at the end of flipping over the cards. And so there's no way to really totally game the system,
Right.
because
you can't guarantee that the card you need will come.
the card
That's
you
right.
need may not show up. And so there's a number of how many cards are there, what kinds of types are there, and you don't know if that one will be the one you flip over at the very end.
Right.
Because there's always one remaining. So I like that. I like that a lot, and it's a fun crossover that both of our more straightforward, easier games have.
And I think this is a very easy game. It's really good for introducing people to a new game.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your more complex roll and write choice?
Okay, so my more complex essentials suggestion is Metro X. Now, Metro X has a really cool thing going on. There's so many cool things about it. So the first thing is the game goes 1 to 6. And it's kind of hard sometimes to find games that are great for 3 and 4 players and great for 5 and 6 players. And of course there's a solo variant. But I think that's really cool. There are these sturdy dry erase boards. There are 2 maps, just like in Trails of Tucana, but you have 2 different sides. One's a little bit easier, one's a little bit more challenging. And every time I play this game, I don't win, but I really feel like there's a chance I could win. And I always want to just keep playing to try new strategies and to just test out things, because you want to complete routes. And you complete routes by selecting the boxes that go in particular colored routes. You can see them down the left side of your board, and you want to complete them, but routes cross over each other. And so you might be actually blocking off, or kind of putting these, I guess, blocking up a blockage, where you have to stop putting in spaces in another color, because you only get to play the card that's flipped over, and then you put that thing in your board wherever you want. Everybody gets to choose. So it might be a transfer, it might be a free space, it might be a numbered space where you can put up to that number in your board, and you're trying to finish the routes, and you want to finish them first because you get more points than, if you don't.
I think that's part of the secret of this game, because you could maybe play the game in such a way that you cover everything. But there's a time limit, because if you get there first, you get more points.
Yeah.
And so you kind of push certain things, but that might be at the expense of other lines.
Yeah.
I think that's clever.
It's just a great game, and then you're done, you erase it. There's a nice thin deck of cards that of course is balanced out, and when you get to the card that says reshuffle, you reshuffle the cards. So there might be a chance that you never see a certain card in the game, because you're going through and then reshuffling the whole thing again and then flipping them over again, and you just flip cards, 1 per turn, every time you want to write something down until you get to the reshuffle. So there's some great just built-in reshuffling and time mechanics and pressure with getting there first. So I like it.
That reshuffling mechanic, where there's a random reshuffle card in there, means that you might want to kind of count cards and figure out when something's coming up. You can't, because that reshuffle comes up and you're like, oh man,
I was really wanting
I really
the
needed
whatever.
this, but
and you
that's
can't
great.
get it.
It's a fun game too.
It's more complex. There are
More
more
rules.
rules than the previous 2 games, but it is just a really super flip and write game, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one you want to play through once,
Yeah.
just to kind of understand how the rules work together, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, my complex
Yeah.
roll, or flip and write, is cartographers.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this game is one where you have a little map. Everyone has their map in front of them, and you flip cards, and then you draw in different land styles or different shapes and types of lands, and you're trying to get points according to what season it is. and the different seasons are looking for different combinations of how the lands work. The first time I played this, it was such a new idea to me, such a new concept. I didn't grasp its genius. It took me 2 or 3 times before I was like, oh, this game's great. One of the things I love about this game is that when you flip a monster over, so there's lands, but there's also monsters in the deck, you have to take your map and hand it to your opponent. You know, you go clockwise, but you hand it to your opponent, and they draw the monsters' spaces in. And they try to mess up your map as much as possible.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah.
I mean, it's frustrating when it's happening, but it's such a good idea for a game. There's something... And you just have to learn how to deal with it, you know? And you say, okay, well, they put these orcs right across this empty space that I was hoping I would get to do something else with. How can I mitigate that? And I think that's a really clever idea.
I think what Cartographers has, there's 2 things I really like. The first thing is you get choice. Do I want to use, because the cards have terrain types and they also have size shapes.
Right.
And so do you want it to be a 1 forest or do you want it to be a 4 water? And it shows a particular shape you draw into your board. And so you have to really pick. And so I like that there's choice because you may really be pushing hard for one of the scorecards that's coming up or one that you're planning for in the future. So that's something I really like is choice in which shapes you draw into your map. And then the other thing I like is that you start with your first scoring session and the very first thing you score will be scored at the end. So you do this 1, 2 here,
It's
2,
like
3,
AB,
AB,
then BC,
BC,
CD, and then
DA.
DA.
And so you can never forget about that A scoring round because it's gonna come back up. And so that's really, really cool. But of course, if you miss a scoring round and then you try to catch up, you kind of get half points because you only get like half the time to score it really well, and then it's done, and it doesn't matter anymore. So there's a lot of things to appreciate.
The scoring mechanism is, again, this is a game I think play it once or twice. Like I needed a second play before I started to see how interesting
I needed like a 3rd or 4th play to be honest.
Play it a couple times, and then once you understand, it doesn't take long.
No,
a game it doesn't take long. I like to have colored pencils for this one.
Yeah, that's
colored pencils make it so much fun because when you're drawing trees, you draw, green trees. And when you're doing, the water, you use blue for what? I don't know. It's fun, and it makes a nice little map when you're finished.
If you want to see my kinds of drawings, I cover Cartographers in the Game of the Year nominees from 2020, and I show his map, I think, and then I show my map. And they look very different.
Right.
So...
I take pride in how I draw my monsters on other people's
boards. That's what it is.
I always make
my monsters look like
fun, scary
Legos or something. They don't look like anything.
So if you're artistically inclined, this game has an extra layer of joy for you.
Yeah, Cartographers is a really good selection. I know it's incredibly popular too. So
Kimberly, what is the flip and write game that we both think is essential to a collection?
We think that Second Chance is the kind of collective game that we want to just pull off the shelf if we have 15, 20 minutes. I know Second Chance is the flip and write game that I share in the classroom. It's really easy to teach. I've noticed one thing about Lewis's selections is that he loves polyominoes.
I do.
They're all polyominoes, shapes that go into your dry erase or your sketchboard.
I've got the spatial intelligence.
You do.
That's my thing.
That is. Yeah. He's very spatially intelligent.
No other way but spatially.
No, for real. And so, of course, with Second Chance, you have the polyominoes. And with Cartographers, there is a choice. You flip over to cards that have different shapes, and you get to select one of those 2 to put into your own player area, which is it's just a piece of paper with pencil. This works really well with colored pens. My students went to town. I had people pulling out their pencil bags and just sharing all their markers and stuff, and they were loving the different designs and just kind of seeing the possibility of differentiating their spaces. But it's great. It's a simple game, straightforward game, lovely choice, easy to play.
Well, and the rule
Yeah.
is that when you pick, you have the 2 shapes to choose from. When you pick the shape and you draw it into your grid, you're just supposed to fill it in. But I think the fun thing to do is always try and have a different design to fill it in. And so I'm always thinking up new designs to fill in with, and it's just part of the fun. It's almost like a leisurely activity. It's like doing a puzzle or something where you're just enjoying drawing your little things, and everyone says, "Are you ready, Lewis, to flip more cards?" And I'm like, "I'm still drawing flowers in here," or whatever. It's fun.
The namesake of the game is something I appreciate too as a gamer.
The second chance.
The second chance. So if you flip over those 2 cards and you can't fit either of those shapes into your map because it's gotten really full or cluttered or it's towards the end of the game, you say, "I need a second chance." And you alone, everyone who needs a second chance, will individually draw the top card on the deck. And if they can fit that shape into their board, they're back in. And then you just join the game again. Next round, you flip the cards over. But the thing is that card that you flip over, everyone knows that it exists and that they don't get it anymore because there's an actual number. You have 3 different cards that you put out on display that show there are 3 of these things, 4 of those things, 2 of those things, and so they're all the different shapes. And so if you see the 1 go by and then someone draws a 1 and you're like, "Oh, come on, we all needed the 1. Why'd you steal the 1?" So that can be really fun too.
You can literally be saying, "Okay, I need this shape and I'll be fine." And then someone else says, "Oh, I need a second chance," and they get that shape, stay in the game, and now you're like, "Oh, I'm going out," because the shapes remaining, because you do know what shapes are available in the whole deck, so the shapes remaining won't, be there for you anymore. So that's great.
And there's the asymmetrical start as well with that game. Second chance, everyone starts with 1 unique shape that has the same number of blocks in it, and you place it in your board, crossing over the center space in any way that you want, as long as that center space is filled in. So everyone starts off with a different configuration. So there's no likelihood that you're going to be doing the same moves and following the same strategy.
Right.
It's still very light though, and I appreciate the lightness of the game.
Easy to learn, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think all these games are pretty easy to learn, and they're all fun.
Yes, easy to learn, fun, compact, and replayable.
One might say they're essential.
They might be. Essential flip and writes for your game collection. Yes, wonderful segue, Lewis.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us for this list of our essential flip and writes. I'm really excited to keep this series, this thread going with our essential suggestions, because there are a lot of games out there, and sometimes it's hard to know which ones to get or which ones to invest in, and we do play a handful of games. And so I hope that you get something from our lists and appreciate the games that we appreciate. So let me know in the comments below, what are your essential flip and write games? And have you played the ones that we suggest? What do you think?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another Essentials Games list. Go! My favorite thing. My favorite thing. Hey, you have to high five me. I forgot. Your high fives are the worst. I've never met anyone who high fives.
I can high five normally, but I do it soft for you because you're bad back. My high fives are
Your
like
high
crush.
fives aren't soft. They're just like pats.
I know. I just go in.
You just go. You go. And you just hold it. Like you don't even like pull away. You're like.
Is that what you want?